JBR Podcast.
Wake up and check it out.
Where the music and life connects. Let's go.
We were lagging there for quite a bit, but your connection's so much better now. It's almost like we should start over.
Well, whatever. You can. I'll go as long as you like. Don't worry about it, and we can always do another one. But I'm saying that the whole idea that people used to pick up stuff, and there's no money left to when you go out for burgers at these places where we would used to play. A burger and a couple beers is like $75. So there's no money left for us.
Yeah, it's totally crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I went out to the Heritage Grill to see Tim Hersey, and I mean, we had a couple crappy burgers and a couple of crappy beers, and it was $100.
No, absolutely. But let's take a note here because your connection is so much better right now.
Okay. Yep.
I wanna circle back on some of the things that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Because
James, I got all the time you need. Yeah.
Perfect. Then we're gonna kind of revisit some of these things just because I think the connection you got me now. We just had some technical difficulties with the networks, and things are good now. So let's circle back because people are just seeing this now for the first time. So when I opened up, I said on how you got started in the music business and the rock shop. And I thought that those stories you were saying were absolutely fabulous. So I want you to talk because I'm here to listen.
Okay, well, like I say, I studied classical music. And we talk about practicing. I went to my teacher, Arvid Grant's, 2 hours a week, 2 1-hour sessions a week. And I practiced, 20 hours a week, 20, whatever. So, and then I went to California in Berkeley. God. And, I spent I was playing with this really cool guy named Art Landy. Like he's got a Wikipedia thing and everything. I don't know why he chose me. But then I met this girl. She took me back to her place. We got high. The DEA raided the place. I had to sign to leave the United States. To this day, I can't go back. And then I came back here. Yeah. Then I came back here to I don't want to go to the United States anymore, James.
Well.
And I can go everywhere else. So I mean, I came back here and started playing in blues bands, and then I started the Finns in about 1981, I guess, and then when about 89, I knew I was having some trouble with my marriage, and I knew I had to do something for a living, so I started the rock shop. So that's like 35 years or more now, and we I started by guys showing up and giving me stuff and saying, "Well, rent it." And even now, like I told you, I foreclosed on the railway club twice. Mm-hmm. Went and got back all the shit that I bought for pennies in the dollar, and then sold it again and came. I mean, not the same exact stuff, but and then you see, I can provide value for some of these places. Like the Fairview was a good place to play, and this is the bottom line, James, and you know this as well as anybody. You get that treatment at the Blues Can, don't you? Yeah. So you go to the Fairview. There's a reasonable sound system. There's a sound guy that's fairly easy to work with. So you play and you go home, and it's busy enough, so it all works. Isn't it great when there's a sound guy and you go in there and I want a little more monitor but you can't have less than what the Fairview had.
No, and the sound guy is the most important thing. I always say, like, that's the guy I want to become best friends with because he's got the suck button. He's going to make me good or bad. In many cases, no matter how well I play, if there's feedback running.
Yeah, no.
And I've got a story. Actually, I've got a story for you. I know that you're going to come into some stories, but this is a Nigel Mack story. I toured with him we did a gig in Dallas. I know, I saw your face. We did a gig in Dallas, and I remember he parked and bumped into this car, and this guy was outside having a smoke. It turned out to be the sound man, right? And then shit just went sideways, and the sound man pulled the fucking mic cables off, and feedback was going, and it was just It was crazy. And I used to, like, every time I go to the States, I'd find a taser gun somewhere and I'd carry it with me everywhere I toured, right? Just in case there's a problem. I remember Nigel's like, we might need that taser gun by the end of the night, right? Because it's just like, holy shit, we had a miserable night because we just got on the wrong side of the fence of the sound guy for whatever reasons, right? Not blaming anyone, but if you got a pissed off sound guy, you got a miserable, shitty sounding gig.
Um, let me tell you though, because we've had bands that said the sound man sabotaged them, but it's not usually necessary for those bands.
Yeah, well, that's a
Nobody
whole
I know
different
that
situation.
ever worked for me, nobody I know that ever worked for me made a band sound bad on purpose.
Yeah,
Nobody.
no, and that was probably the only time I've ever experienced that. Like
Yeah,
literally unplugged mics and would like feedback when somebody would try and sing. It was terrible. But yeah,
yeah.
I'd never experienced it anywhere else. It was at the Blue Cat in Dallas. That's where it was at the time.
Ooh, I've never been to the Blue Cat in Dallas, but yeah. Circling back, so I was in the basement of my house, and then my first real shop was at 824 Renfrew, and that's when I had Charlie McNary and uh, Lance Romance. Mark Stadnick, we called Lance Question. He was Brian Adams' guitar tech for years too. So they left their trucks and this ton of gear, and I started renting it. And I had systems in the clubs, California Dreamin', um, you know, Newton and the Fraser Arms, and that was the thing. At one point, I mean, you know Ricky Reniff, don't you?
Yeah, I played with Ricky on Sunday. I play with him a lot these days.
Okay, so Ricky came to my shop in 1990 with Boink, the sound guy, and Brian Poulsen, and it was Gallus. Shane Gallus was the drummer. So they took a huge cube van, huge sound, huge lights, and the cube van. They went everywhere. I remember the transmission died in freaking Medicine Hat, and so, I mean, I've been working with Ricky since 1990. I mean, I got some great relationships with some of these guys. And then here's another one: is my son. I think you met Eddie anyway. When he was about 3 when I had the rock shop, and of course Mike Gagnon and Ed Weatherup were like his evil uncles. But he got to know everybody. Like Bob Pop would bring pierogies from his mom, and my wife said, "Oh shit, like what kind of a place is that for a kid to be?" And then she calls me once. She goes, "Well, your 3-year-old son answered the phone when I called the rock shop today." And I said, "Oh, but he gave me the message, and now he's a salesman. He
He's
sells
on the
stuff."
payroll.
Yeah. I mean, and the same thing is even back then. Rob Becker and Ricky Reniff and Boink and so Jay and all the people like Al Metcalf and Jay Bittner and Patricia Conroy and all these other people. Back then, I still know them now. So um, it changed. And then for a while, I'd rent to little places, but that's not happening anymore
Yeah, no,
because of
it's
everything's so expensive, right?
yeah. I had
Um,
this conversation with Tom Lavin, a while ago, and you talked earlier on the last take that people probably aren't going to see because we had some network problems there. In terms of, I came in the scene and the average wage for guys were $100 a night, and this is 35 years later, and
yeah.
it's still $100 a night. And guys are telling me in the '70s, which is the decade I was born in, it was $100 a night.
Yep. Oh yeah. Um, I I mean, I used to teach at Pavi as a guest lecturer. That's where I met a lot of the sound guys that work for me. And at one time, this guy's being really disrespectful to me, and I called him out. And the
That's
next day,
not
he
good.
went to Tom to complain about me. And Tom said, "What the fuck am I supposed to do about Dave Chisholm? That's the people that run the music industry, are people like that. And it's just not my problem, dude. You shouldn't piss people like that off, right? I mean, anyway."
Yeah, no, I
When I
know.
taught at Pavi, James, 1 in 50 of those people would ever work in the industry,
Yeah,
if that.
yeah,
So,
it's competitive with very little work these days.
but going back to what music can become, I think it has to become more entertaining, and I think um, I think we can mix genres up a little more. I think these festivals should just be music festivals. I don't think they should be blues or jazz. The jazz festival isn't jazz, and the blues festival isn't blues. I
Yep.
just want to see a good show.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I deal with it being kind of call myself just a blues guy because I'm a simple player at that point, but I'm a little bit outside of the blues. So I find myself entrenched with a lot of what I call the blues Nazis. They
Oh
want
yeah,
that,
no, that they,
you know what I mean,
um,
right? And they
yeah,
don't like what I do because it's blues, but it's, I don't have a raspy voice. I have more of a crooner style, smooth voice, and it's different and it's not blues. But then the people outside of blues are like, it's too blues. And it's like, I've dealt with that my whole
yeah,
career,
no,
if you want
and
to call
you're
it
being
that.
true to yourself. I mean, like some of these guys that give themselves nicknames and this and that is like, I'm Dave from Carisdale, and I mean, I really learned my music on classical flute. And I don't play harmonica in a standard way, and some of the blues Nazis don't like it. Do I give a fuck what they think? No, I don't. I don't care what they think. I mean, I'm going up to play with Steve Kozak in September, and I mean, is it ever fun after all these years to just be the harp player in the band?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about getting paid or somebody not showing up, or, um, but what's wrong with harp players? Couple things. Let me explain.
Please do, because I always say they put the harm in harmonica.
Yeah, they do. Okay, so remember years ago you had that the newspaper, and I wrote some articles. First off, wait your turn. Okay, don't play harp all the way through the frickin' song. Just don't. Wait. Okay. Next, um, do something unique. Don't play old riffs that Little Walter did or whatever. Nothing wrong with Little Walter, but try to make it modern. And then
Yeah.
you see, as a harmonica player, you should be big and ugly and protect the legitimate musicians, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, I think what hurts a lot of harp players is they don't know anything about music. And I could read music when I was 10. And I think it helps to know what the rest of the band's doing,
Yeah, I
you
call
know?
that a pair of ears at that point. Like myself, I
Yeah,
can't read like newspapers, let alone music. But
but
I
that's
have
not what I'm talking
ears.
about.
I have
I'm,
ears.
but I'm talking about harmonic players specifically could use more musical knowledge outside of the harmonica.
Yeah, for sure.
Paul Butterfield was a flute player.
But you guys take like two hands and a mouth just to make one note.
I know, and I mean, I used to do a battle with Rob Bracken, and you talk about the blues Nazis. The Brick House plays
Oh yeah, they're
outside them,
great.
and the two of
Yeah,
us would have battles. Two different harmonica styles, and two guys that can actually play. Nice for a
that's
change. I mean,
that's
come
great.
on, James. I've showed up for a jam or something. I don't do jams anymore, but I show up to sit in with the band, and we goes, "Oh, great, I'll play." Oh, it's actually not that bad.
Well, yeah, because the guy's just noodling the whole song, right? Drives me nuts.
Oh, yeah, you gotta dial that whole shit back. But yeah, it's phrasing is what comes the latest in music.
Yeah,
Phrasing is the most important thing. That's something you've always excelled at, and something that you do. Now I've seen your band a few times. It's been a while, but you have your own style. So there's just entertainment and not. I mean, when I did this last show, I did this Scream of Consciousness was Bruce on bass and Dave Webb on piano. They'd never played before. We didn't have any rehearsal. We just kind of made a bunch of noise, and I did a bunch of bullshit stories, and it was somehow entertaining.
that's awesome.
There's no rules anymore.
No, no,
So
there's definitely
I,
not.
I was just gonna quickly jump into the Commodore because I know Al Walker and Tim Hersey and myself. We used to do a lot of opening acts at the Commodore. I saw Tim open for Muddy Waters. Al opened for a whole bunch of people. I opened for John Lee Hooker, Willie Dixon, Junior Walker. Um, uh, Greg Allman was a complete dip, and and Junior Walker was really cool too. But the coolest people ever, and I just laughed because Bruce Morrison and I did that gig in 1982, and I forgot what it was. It was 16,800 days ago that
Like,
we
did you?
played. Yeah.
You just figured that
More.
out off the top of your head, or did you do
No,
some
no,
math
no.
earlier?
When I went out to see him a couple months ago, we doing some videos, and it was 16,000, more than 16,000 days ago. We opened for Willie Dixon for 2 nights.
Hold on a sec. 16,000 days ago?
Yeah, it was September
That,
2nd, 1982.
that's 43.8 years ago, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
According to my math on my calculator.
Which, okay, so, but I'm just saying, but what was the coolest thing about it was, you think of it, okay, so it was Willie out front, so it was Carrie Bell on harp, and Butch Dixon was the son and piano, so it was um, guitar, bass, drums, piano, singer. And just they did it. The way they played, Willie Dixon and that band, it's just like, it makes you, okay, so I'm going to have to toss a couple people over the side here. John Mayall, just stop it. All that, like, Savoy Brown, oh, just give me a break. Rock and roll started in Chicago at Chess Records. Just don't, there's no other place it started. I mean, the Beatles are a pop band. Okay, I got that. But 10 years before the Beatles, Little Walter and Fred Below and Willie Dixon and Howlin' Wolf and these guys, they were slugging it out. Fred Below was doing single stroke rolls anyway. So we opened for Willie Dixon. And what we found out was so cool because we didn't meet Willie, but we got drunk with Carrie Bell and Butch Dixon, Willie's son, 2 nights. And that was the first time, come on, you know what it feels like when somebody who's really cool thought we were cool or pretended to think that we were cool. Who knows, right? Like Butch Dixon. And these are friends of Finn's and these guys can play the blues. But you see, Chess Records wasn't just a blues label. The first big hit on Chess Records was Gene Ammons on tenor sax doing My Foolish Heart. Ahmad Jamal, a great jazz piano player. But these guys all knew each other and hung out. And when Butch Dixon was a kid, he wanted to play football, but his mom said, you have to learn an instrument. So he learned how to play piano from Lafayette Leak. And I remember that he said being in the studio, and there's Ahmad Jamal, and I don't know if you know his stuff, but you can go find it. And Jamal's coming in and doing an album, and Butch asks Lafayette Leak, well, what's this all about? He goes, that's the shit, man. That is, to me, still the best piano player I've ever seen is Ahmad Jamal. But it's neat that Gene Ammons went drinking with Little Walter. That these guys all knew each other, not just a little bit, but just imagine the music that happened at Chess Records. I mean, that's Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Howlin' Wolf. I was lucky enough to see Howlin' Wolf for 3 nights in a row downtown Vancouver at the Egress. So I'm just old enough to have gone in underage and seen some of that amazing shit. I worked at Oil Can Harry's, and that's when the original Tower of Power was playing. B.B. King, the big band, 2 trumpets and 2 tenors and an alto, and so yeah, I mean, I love music. I'm so lucky that I've been able to do this, but it's not just luck, James.
No, well, luck comes with talent.
No, but the thing is with me, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting with my grandkids or I'm talking on the phone at the shop or I'm playing on the stage. I just do a Dave thing. I mean, I'm not a sound guy. I mean, I can play harmonica and sax and sing a bit, but it's just I'm a full-time Dave, and I'm lucky to be able to have done that. But people that aren't salesmen, I know you work in business. Salesmen are everything, and being a salesman is an occupation. It's a trade.
Yep.
And I'm way better at it now than I was how many years ago. And it's like that's what drives every product. Who's selling it for you?
100%.
And I'm not the least bit ashamed to say I'm a salesman more than I'm anything.
Yeah, and speaking of sales, we talked about the rock shop earlier, and you talked about some of the challenges, I guess everybody faced when COVID hit. But what's happening with the rock shop now? What are you doing on there? You mentioned you pivoted a little bit because of how the markets and the industry and everything are going. But
right now I have I put a system in the Cobalt, so they own it. I put a system in the Fox, and they bought it. I have a system in the Rio that I rent to outside clients and to the Rio. I have a system in an LGBTQ place called the Birdhouse. It's really fun. So I have enough stuff to, to keep it all going, and all my stuff is paid for. So I was going to say about this, right? Just last week, I sold, $3,000 worth of stuff, amps and speak, because it's good stuff and it's
Yeah.
affordable. Even okay. For example, I did a show. It was called Rib Fest, and it was just at the park right near between my house and my shop, right in my neighborhood. And I asked for $9,000 for 3 days, and that's with the back line and the crew and the system and everything. And the guy that I'm negotiating with is like, I said, well, tell you what, get a bunch of idiots to get stuff from McQuaid's and do it for $5,000 and make you look stupid, or pay the corporate company $40,000. That's all there is. There's nothing in between. And if somebody said to you, oh, well, James Rogers is going to play this show and it's going to be Tim Hearsey later, it's going to be 3 bands during the day, it's going to be 1,000 people, we could all make it work. We could all make it work. And there's enough talent, there's enough ability. And I have an older sound system. It's probably 15 years old, but it's built for outdoors.
Yeah, and they sound good.
It kicks ass for 1,000 people.
Yeah.
This whole idea that all these powered speakers and they're light and they're convenient, they don't do outdoors.
No, ever. And they always crapping out every time I use them.
Yeah. I mean, and then I put something for sale on Craigslist a couple months ago. I said, well, these are powered speakers. They're expensive because mankind has lost the innate ability to hook power amp up to speakers. I mean, shit, you run from the mixer to the amp to the speaker.
Yeah, some people don't realize like in and out is not really difficult, but some people get confused with that.
Like wireless mics. I mean, they're not good. I have them, and people want them. But I mean, look what James Brown did with a mic and a wire. A mic and a wire works better.
Well, Albert Collins had a 200-foot guitar cable, right?
Yeah, I know. And I mean, it's just cable. I mean, if wireless worked better, we wouldn't have wires in our walls, would we? It would just be air. And I mean, like we wouldn't have to have electrical plugs. It would all just be invisible.
I saw Robert Cray with this wireless system, and he had and I don't know much about that technology because I don't use it. I just plug straight into an amp and don't really use pedals and stuff. He had like these like antennas on the side of the stage. It wasn't just like some Shure wireless system you get from Long & McQuaid. Like he had fucking antennas. Like the sound guy was like, "What are those?" And he's like, "Oh, it's for his wireless system."
Yeah, I'm not
fucking antennas. It. Yeah, like I don't know what it was, and maybe the guy bullshit me, but I was like, "That's crazy" because it looked bizarre.
There's a case where, I mean, okay, so Buddy Guy plays out of tune. It's just all there is to it.
Well, that's the old blues thing. They get away with it.
No, but I don't care. He plays out of tune. To me, it's wrong. It sounds horrible. Curtis Salgado. I mean, Robert Cray, to me, is just an average guy, but he's good looking. He was picked. It's like if a figure skater gets picked. That's going to be the next champion. Robert Cray got picked. Buddy Guy got picked. Are they the best guys out there? No, they're not. We know local guys that play better. The guy that really drove the Robert Cray band was Curtis Salgado, the harp player singer. You saw him. You've seen Curtis.
Oh yeah. He's a monster. But I will say I'm biased to Robert. I'm a huge Robert Cray fan. So yeah, I do love Robert Cray. And as a guitar player, I feel like he's underrated as a guitar player because he's such a good fucking singer.
See, I'm not saying that he doesn't have it. I'm saying he was picked.
Yeah, and he picked. Very well so, because there's so many great players, and you wonder why they can't make it to that level. I guess
some guys just get picked. Some guys get picked. I mean, I just don't understand. I opened for Johnny Winter at the Commodore, and that's a little story on its own. But like people talk about Eric Clapton compared to Johnny Winter. I'm sorry, Johnny Winter to me is 5 times better than Eric Clapton. I mean, just how original he is, and I mean, shit. The Beatles were doing me man like sucky pop songs, and Johnny Winter was laying it down at that time. Mean
Yeah,
Town Blues, and
but maybe that's a difference. They crossed over where I guess maybe Johnny didn't. I don't know. I didn't follow that kind of stuff too closely, but I do agree that some people they make it more mainstream. I look at a guy like currently like Doyle Bramhall too. Like for
yeah,
him to not be mainstream like a John Mayer or a Joe
yeah.
Bonamassa like drives me fucking bonkers because not taking anything away from the other guys, but I just think Doyle's like in another stratosphere
Yeah.
for how he is.
I mean, you look at all those English guitar players, and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, to me Clapton he peaked at Disraeli Gears, and Clapton always plays in tune, and he's a good player, but he's just a good blues player. He's not earth shattering or. You're way too young to know when Disraeli Gears came out with Sunshine of Your Love and Strange Brew and all that other shit. Jack Bruce playing bass and singing and driving it. He's like the guy who assisted on every Eric Clapton goal. That guy, like he's not the goal scorer, but he
Yeah.
assisted on everyone. Uh, Jack Bruce really carried Eric Clapton. And I'm not a big. You look at what Jeff Beck did. I mean, come on, any guitar. Jeff Beck. I mean, what the fuck, man? He's just, to me, there's never been anybody better. I mean, there's 100 guitar players that are that good, but I think Jeff Beck, what he does, nobody else does that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And speaking of Clapton, from a blues perspective, he's not my favorite. He's got some cool pop contemporary
He
tunes
plays
I
tune.
like.
Yeah.
And he's in tune, but I'm much more out of the, I'd much rather listen to, guys like Jimmy Vaughn or.
Yep. Yeah, tasty. Yeah, that's phrasing.
Honestly, I don't even listen to music anymore these days. I don't even pick my guitar up unless I go to a gig.
So let me just dash onto my Johnny Winter experience. So that we got it, Drew Burns would never tell us if we got a Commodore show. He would just advertise it in the Georgia Strait. So
You're like, hey, we got a gig.
What's that?
You're like, hey, look, guys, we got a gig. The paper came out.
No, somebody would phone me and say, Dave, remember now? We got the Johnny Winter show. Okay. And I said to Drew, I said, well, what the fuck? And he goes, I know you'll cancel whatever gig you have to open for Johnny Winter. I said, yeah, of course I will.
He's right.
Yeah, no. And but so we get the gig, and that was the band. So that was me and Bud and Chris Meister and Elio and Matt. So that was probably the longest, tightest version of the band. That band played together probably 4 years, 50 weeks a year. And so we get the gig. We get there, and we're starting. We're doing sound check, and Drew goes, "Hey Dave, we got to talk." And I said, "Okay." So he goes, "Look, Johnny's at the border. And Johnny has problems and he might not get here. So here's what you got to do. You got to try to hold the crowd as long as you can. And if he doesn't show up, we'll refund the ticket price, but we'll try to, the Commodore Ballroom is $15,000 an hour at the bar.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's, do the math. There's 1,000 heavy drinkers.
Yeah.
Right. So we get up there, and on this, I remember Steve Kozak was there in the front row. I didn't know him at the time. So second song, everybody goes, Johnny, Johnny. And I just stopped the band. I said, Johnny is at the border. So do you want us to play? Because we can play, but we're not taking this Johnny, Johnny shit anymore. So I said, you guys want to hear it? And then I finally got him to scream. And then we played an hour and a half. Johnny shows up. So this is a case where drug addiction. So he showed up, he'd crapped himself. They gave him whatever dope. And he came out and destroyed the world playing guitar.
For sure.
He destroyed the universe.
Yeah.
And then he does
at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, he does, and he's as unintelligible as any black blues man. And 4 super reverbs on 10, but just fucking unbelievable. And that was a great part for our career. But we didn't meet Johnny. but we pulled off an important show, and I got extra money from Drew, and we got extra money for doing that. But what was cool about that was we played a major venue, but we dealt with the owner directly.
Yeah.
So Commodore was great. Willie Dixon. Oh, can I squeeze one more in, Junior Walker?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So and you know who Junior Walker is, Shotgun, and how sweet it is, and all this other stuff. So we open up, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you're a sax player too." So he was hanging out with us backstage, and I don't know if you remember, he did a sax solo on "Urgent" by Foreigner.
Yeah.
It's urgent. Anyway, so here's the story real quick, is that they were trying to get a good solo, and then one of the guys at the band said, well, Junior Walker's playing down the street. So they get him to come, and he's tired. He says, well, look, I'll do like 5 shots at it, and then you pay me, and then I'll go home. So the engineer takes it, and he makes it into that great solo that we've heard. And it's a big hit. So Junior Walker says, well, those guys called me up, and they said, we're doing this, whatever, 10-city tour. We'll give you $5,000 a night to just play the solo. And he goes, well, yeah, of course I'll do that. And then he says to me, he says, you know, Dave, those guys were big rock stars, and they were super cool, and they treated me really well. But he said, I got to tell you, Dave, the pussy that those guys get. He said, it was just unbelievable. I mean, there's no other way to take the story, and you just think, how down to earth, and you know, he's been gone for a long time too, but what a cool guy. And he said, those guys treated me but you wouldn't believe the pussy these guys get, you know, big huge rock stars. He said they were so cool with me. So I mean, I don't know, man. That was the Commodore was always great. Al Walker and Tim Hersey and myself, we did a lot of the shows there, and you know, Tim and I go back a long way too.
Oh, yeah.
Very close personal friend, played together as teens. And to me, I don't think there's anybody better. I really don't. Timmy on a good night, you know.
Oh, on a bad night, he's the real deal.
Yeah. So I did a thing until the pandemic killed it. I did a thing just once a month at the Fairview, and it was Tim, and it would be like usually Rob Becker, Nordquist, Jerry Cook. And then if somebody couldn't make it, like if Becker couldn't do it, we'd get a call from Darren Paris, and it just turned into like a poker night. We'd go up and play, no rehearsal. But you know what I forgot, James? And I know you could do it. Most people can't just go and wing a whole night.
I do it every time I play.
No, but I know you do. But most people can't. I know I could go sit in with your band. You tell me what key you're in. I say, oh, this song isn't good for me or whatever. We could figure it out. And I got the set list from Steve Kozak to do the next thing. But you know, everybody knows what they're doing, and everybody's listening, and everybody's done a lot of gigs. I think there's a lot of people out there that think I only own a sound company. They don't even know I'm a musician.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk a lot about your playing and stuff. But as we close things out here, how can people connect with you, with the Rock Shop, and, you know, follow what's happening with you?
Well, I mean, I'm on the Facebook. I do it. I have a Rock Shop thing. I have a Facebook page called Scream of Consciousness that's all about weird videos. And I have Dave's Rock Shop on YouTube. And I'll give you my phone number right now. My cell phone number is 604-721-7711. People can, I am totally into being a businessman and doing what I'm doing and talking to people unless I'm disrespected. Get anybody to call me. I have a hell of a time. And the worst that can happen, James, is you come to the shop and you're somewhat entertained and you leave. You go home.
And I'll get your socials from you when we're done, and then we'll put them here as well so that people can connect with you. But
okay, I'll go any. Yeah, are we winding up? I'll go any other time. We finally got it together.
We finally got our shit together. But you know, before we close out, is there anything else you want to mention? You want to say some final goodbyes to everybody?
I really miss a couple of my friends, Matt Steffich, Chris Meister, and I've got some. I'm so lucky to have worked with people like Tim, Elio Martelli, some you know, the friendships, really talented guys, and all of us. None of us are blues Nazis. We're all the other guys. So there's only entertainment and non-entertainment.
For sure.
You know,
Good and bad.
I still think I'm more influenced by J.S. Bach and Gene Ammons than by any harp players. So I mean, hell with the Nazis, but we'll have to do with it. You and I will have to play a couple songs together in the next few months. We'll have to find a way.
Absolutely, we will do that.
Yeah.
It's good to touch base with you and see what's going on, and be sure to send me those links so I'll get them in here for people to follow what you're doing and connect with you.
I'll send it. Thanks so much, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
I've known
you since you were 13, and now you're all grown up.
Yeah, well, did any of us ever grow up? When the last episode I posted, I said I was going to have you on here, and I said, Dave and I have known each other for many years, and I remember that day you came up to me and you said, why we get along? Because we're both assholes. You remember that?
I do. I totally
I think that was in your shop when I was buying some gear off you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.